never betray who you are for where you think you want to go.
Okay. Okay. Never betray who you are to get where you want.
Well, where you think you want to go, because most of us think we want to go somewhere and we have no idea what's at the end of that rainbow, and we find out that it was not a rainbow. And it was not gold either. So never make that shift and betray who you feel like you are deep down inside, or betray the boundaries that you set for the people you would work with, or the things that you are willing to do to get to where you think you want to go, because that destination, isn't, it's like the end of a movie, The Princess Bride, they ride off into the sunset, but what happened after that, you don't really know. So don't think that there's ever that like happy ending that you're heading toward. Just stay true to yourself and you will find the best way, because the real treasure is the journey. So if you're not enjoying that, then you're doing it all wrong anyway.
Yeah. Hey, what's going on, everyone? And welcome to season 4 of Legacy's Journey, where we talk about creating what outlives you. I'm your host, Cameron Williams, owner of Kinley Consulting, where we focus on strategic financial growth for marketing agencies so that they can live the dream life they deserve and not be a slave to their business through CFO services and consulting. Now, this is season 4. We had to take a little break. Tax season was really real. We signed a lot of clients, which is great, and we definitely want to take care of them. But now we back. We in Q3 going into Q4. We're in 2025. So I was like, you know what are we going to focus on this season, right? And we decided that our theme, like for this whole entire season, is buy, sell, scale, and excel. So those are the companies that we're going to focus on. People who've either bought a company, sold it, they're scaling really fast. So it's a lot of moving pieces. Or I just know they're excelling overall and in general, and I know they will have a lot of gems for you. So, I had to put my feelers out there. I'm more connected in these streets now, you know what I'm saying? And so I'm like, who could I go hit up? Who could I go check in? And you know what? I was like, I know somebody, because we just hung out in Austin for a couple of days. We had some great convos. We ate some good food. So I was like, Dave, let's do it. And so, ladies and gentlemen, Dave is here. Tell the people name of the company and when you started.
Okay, sure. Dave Zarin. The name of my company is Zarinology Inc., and we formed in 2015.
Okay, cool. All right, so tell the people, what does your company do? Because, in their minds, who is this guy? I've never heard of him. He could be a gazillionaire. We just don't know. So tell the people, what does your company do? How do you help people?
Fair enough. Yeah. So we work with companies of all sizes, helping them with their technical infrastructure. So system integrations and our automations is really our primary business. But we also help larger organizations, refresh their technology stack. So if they're working on dated systems, we help them modernize them. And that's everything from hosting and infrastructure to websites and forward-facing, client-facing stuff.
So in other words,
really boring.
The important back end stuff that y'all complain about when it don't go right, or my automation's not working, or I don't understand why my app developer can't get us to whatever. This is who you need to be talking to.
Yeah.
All right, now, go ahead.
No, exactly. So a lot of the clients that we work with have bottlenecks inside of their organization because systems aren't talking to each other, or they're doing a lot of manual processes that they haven't figured out how to automate. So we work with a lot of organizations in that situation. And like I said, anywhere from 1 million a year to 100 million a year is typically the size of the companies we work with.
See, this is about to be great, because he's going to tell you, because he's seen it with his own eyes and fingers, some of the mistakes that he's seeing in your company. So we're going to jump into all that. But before we do that, give the people a little bit of background. Like, when did you start? Like, how did we end up here? Like, what made you even start the agency in the first place?
Fair. Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. It's a fun one too. Actually, I was working in 2010 with a company. We were building these like interactive video players, which is way before their time. And we had a lot of trouble getting that off the ground. So I left and started my own company. And at first I just wanted to build websites and bring my skills out, SEO, things like that, to the market. I did this with nothing. So I had like $500 in my pocket, which isn't nothing, but it's pretty close, especially when you don't have income. So I remember my first sale was to a dairy farm in Mayaca, Florida, because I lived in Sarasota at the time. And it was $750 to get as a deposit to revamp their site and get them raising the ranks in SEO. She wanted to qualify for kids' birthday parties, and I got her number one above Chuck E. Cheese within 3.5 months. So that was a lot of fun. It was the first one, great success. And then it just continued to scale from there. I started meeting new people in the affiliate space, affiliate and direct to consumer brands, mainly supplements. And I started doing a lot of infrastructure work for tracking and attribution. So we were running multi-million-dollar launches and handling all the tracking infrastructure, making sure that there was redundancy of the data and also of the infrastructure, so that if anything were to fail under high traffic, we would have backups and things like that to recover. There was also back in the 2016, 2017 time when people were less familiar with the affiliate space as it was growing. They were doing a lot of incorrect tracking. So we had developed systems that helped us fix those mistakes from incoming traffic that wasn't being attributed properly. So that was kind of my claim to fame and what got me really launched off in the affiliate and direct to consumer space. And then just like every company, we made some mistakes. We started to come outside of what I call my little box of where I'm supposed to be focused. And I got shiny object syndrome, and I started building software, and I started, bringing on larger clients at the time and kind of going outside of our wheelhouse. And that was bad. It resulted in a lot of lost money and a lot of lost time, and me having to scale back my company and kind of have a little reassessment of what I was doing and where I was heading. And by going through that, it just helped me to get a little bit more laser focused on what really fulfills me, what I really want to put out into the world, and how I really want to help these organizations and people within them to excel on their journey. And that's what my company now is really focused on with automations. We're really niched down to automations and system integrations, as well as leadership training, which is another portion of something I offer, which is a side project.
Okay, so as usual, right? A story where it's like I dibbled and dabbled, I was really good, and now we're here. Okay, now let's jump into it because we gonna hit these questions because we got some good things to go through. All right, so in your case, and this is like the perfect question. So you just said we help mostly owners in that $1 million to $100 million range. What is one thing you figured out that you think most of these business owners are like still sleeping on or don't fully comprehend?
Sure. I would probably say that technology and their understanding of it, you don't have to be a developer, but you do have to have baseline understanding of what these technologies do and how they serve you and your company. What I see a lot, regardless of the size of the company, is abdication of responsibility when it comes to tech. Because people, I mean, there's enough overwhelming stuff to deal with as a business owner, right? Especially if you're wearing a lot of hats. But even as companies grow, really the biggest difference between a $5 million company and a $50 million company is how many more resources they have to work with, as far as like C-suite and stuff like that. And then the structure gets more complex as you get higher than 50 million. So but it doesn't really seem to matter. Like the decision makers are still always lost, and they try to rely on people that also try to rely on other people. And then you have this downstream telephone effect where communication is just not efficient throughout the organization, which is always common. So if you have communication problems, very common, whether you're small or big. But then when the owner, the person at the top, doesn't really take any responsibility toward it and tries to what I call abdicate instead of delegate that responsibility to others, it usually kind of bites them, because if something is going to affect you, the person at the top, if the outcome is going to affect your reputation, your money, your time, any of those things, you need to have full control over the outcome as much as you possibly can, which means that you need to be very direct and distinct in your instructions. You have to know exactly what you're trying to accomplish. And then you also need to ensure that everybody that you have assigned to doing that has all the tools and the information that they absolutely need to accomplish it. You don't want guesses. You don't want assumptions, because when people start making assumptions on the other side, as in downstream to you, that's when those assumptions, the risk gets bigger and bigger on your end. So really what it comes to is ensuring that you have the right advisory, the right people, and you can qualify those people to ensure that you're getting the right information. You don't need to always need to bring in a CTO, but you should have a place that you can go to ask questions to people that you know have been through it. Because what we tend to do, from my perspective of like what I do with people, is something I call disruptive inquiry, which is I try to ask questions that make people uncomfortable about what the end result is going to look like or what tools are going to use to accomplish the goal. So the more questions you can ask, because a lot of times I see people say, oh, so you're going to use system X. And they say, yeah, we're using this. And they give them like 3 or 4 very base level reasons why. And nobody digs any further. No one goes into the next level of questions that says, okay, so how is this going to actually solve our problem? And then dig into, there's more specific that you get about the actual features it does, how they serve your company, and what they do. And if that person comes back with, I don't know, or they come back with a little bit more or a vague answer that you just feel like they're kind of making shit up. Sorry about the language. If they're doing that, then you need to make sure you're booking demos, making sure that you're on the call, because doing something right the first time takes a lot less of your time, money, and energy than having to do it over. So by taking the extra time to do it right the first time, you're going to save yourself a lot more heartache and a lot more energy and a lot more money down the road. So never think that you don't have enough time, because you always have enough time to make the right decision.
Okay. I hope y'all heard that. The tools you pick are super important, and you need to have full clarity on not just the tool and baseline features, but how it works for your business. Okay. So then let's swap this back to you. So now, and how long have you been in business?
I guess almost 11, 12. Well, I mean, I had a small company before that, so about 13 years total.
Okay. So what move have you made that you think has really changed the game for you in regards to like growing your company? Because most people always think like it's this magic pill or like it's this magic secret formula. Every time I talk to business owners that are successful, that's not the case. So what is like that one thing that you did that was like, when I started doing this, this is when we really took off?
Sure. I would say it was kind of a combination of things, but ultimately it was learning how to let go, how not to be attached to specific outcomes as well as specific decisions that I was making. And then also knowing when to let go of a project. Even if I've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into a project before that I've let go. Because it became an anchor instead of a sail on the direction we were heading. And while that hurt a lot, I had to let it go, because the pain that that the future pain that it relieved was a lot. And I think that the way that I came to learning about letting go, I realized over time that you learn so much. There's so much information out there right now. You can learn anything you want to learn online. There's so many great influencers who have a lot of great information, but knowing what they tell you and even experiencing it and knowing that it's going to happen is a lot different than integrating it into your daily life and the way that you approach everything. So integration is the most important thing when it comes to the stuff that you learn. And integration doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen from listening to a podcast once or 300 times. It doesn't come from listening to books at 2x, trying to cram them in, because you're just taking in information you most likely already know. Integrating is putting it into action and failing and trying it over and over and over again and doing little iterative shifts until you finally get it right. And when I say get it right, I mean get it in line with what's appropriate for your vision, because there is really no right and wrong. It's just what's appropriate for the vision that you have and the trajectory that you're headed and the velocity that you want to go.
I told y'all we got elite guests. You heard it. He told you. Okay, next question. I love this question because I feel like it's hard, but it's not.
All right.
What is something that you believed in business early on that you feel like now at this stage you had to completely like unlearn and undo?
Okay. So in business and life are different things. So I will say with business specifically, um, I would say that chasing vanity metrics, and that's a very common one, but it's very impactful, to be honest, especially when you've really lived it, not just heard it. Um, Looking at things like revenue and being like, oh, look how much we made this year. I've made more money. I made decent seven figures before and spent more than that in a year. And it's a different beast, right? So like understanding what profitability really looks like and what it really what it really means, which on the surface level it sounds so simple, but it really isn't in action, because when you're in motion nothing seems to make sense. You just try to go off of what you believe looks right and what you think when everybody from the outside looking in is going to see and think success is, especially when you're very new. So really focusing on what is driving profitability. And when I say profitability, I don't just mean the cold hard cash you're sticking in your pocket. I mean the time, the energy that you have, the relationships that you have in your life, and the relationship you have in your life, and the time that you spend with yourself. Because when I first started in business, I ignored everything except money, revenue, and that was it. Now, as I've gotten more seasoned, I've realized that when I was creating distance in my relationships with my wife and kids, and when I was, and my friends, even, and my parents and the rest of my family, that I was doing a disservice because I was also losing myself in it. So those vanity metrics are very dangerous, because when you're focused on revenue, you're focused on something that's very shallow. When you focus on profitability, you focus on something that encompasses not just the money you put in your pocket, but your entire life and everything involved in it, which is the only foundation you need to grow off of. Because if you try to scale on a broken foundation, then the only thing left is collapse.
Okay, see, he just so easily just transitioned right on to our favorite topic, talking about those finances. All right, so he already got into it, talking about vanity metrics, revenue versus profitability. Let's go there. All right, so I guess maybe even a better question is, how do you make financial decisions now compared to then? Because to your point at the beginning, and that's all of us, yay, I made 10K, then this, I made, and it keeps going up. But at some point, I know you made that switch. So like, how do you make these financial decisions in the business now versus then? Like, is it through a bookkeeper? Do you got a CFO? Tell the people.
Sure. I have a CPA, and so I make a lot of financial decisions with my CPA, especially when it comes to balancing, taking out debt, to when to take debt on and when not to, when to try to scale, like when things look stable, and then also a little bit with pricing. So you could say that that's technically my what's the word, my transactional CFO, we'll say, or fractional. That was the word I was looking for. My fractional CFO. And a third party looking in is always going to have different perspective than you are. So it's very important to always get that perspective, because you could think you're as clear headed, or you could just think you have a lot of clarity, but you probably don't, because you're only seeing it from your perspective, especially in a moment when a decision needs to be made. There's a lot of weight that we carry when we make decisions. And if we don't know how to properly carry what's really ours in that situation, and then bring in the proper parties for additional perspective to shine light on what other ways we can look at this and understand how it's going to affect our trajectory and affect the velocity in which we're going to reach our vision or goals that we have set toward our vision, you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't have that. And also, anytime you think, just another really quick trick is, anytime you think you've got something priced out, double it, because scope creep exists and people are always going to try to get that little edge on you.
That is facts. Okay. I love this, because we love hearing that you guys get the financial support. And that's a common theme that we're seeing too with all of these successful companies. They are partnering with people that's helping them to get that additional edge. So tell me, like, okay, going back a little bit in the story, what was like probably one of the biggest financial curveballs that you hit as you started growing? For a lot of people, they always tell me it's like that very first tax bill after they start making like good money because it's like, I owe how much? I gotta pay what? So like, what was the one that you remember?
Sure. So I guess we could go down to something like that. I originally formed my company as an LLC, the original company I had, and I was just filing a Schedule C like everyone else, and paying everything. And I did a lot of research at the time. And at this point, I was just kind of doing it on my own. I didn't really have the money to afford a CFO or even a CPA at the time. I was
Right.
kind of trying to. I had buddies who had businesses for a while. They'd come over and help me do my taxes and stuff. I always felt ashamed showing them how much I made that year, but but
Right.
anyway, so what I ended up doing with my company now is I formed it this time as a C corp and took an S corp election. Now you could do an LLC with an S corp election, but by taking that S corp election, you free yourself up a lot because you can make yourself an employee of the company, which I did, which handled a lot of the taxes, but you pay yourself low and you give yourself distributions, which helps you alleviate some tax burden. And then also with the corporate structure, it gives you your CPA a lot more flexibility to for more expenses to come out of the company in your life. So I'd say that realizing how much the knowledge was that you could absorb from various different people. And I asked a lot of questions. I didn't just Google it. I knew people and I would just, take them to dinner and ask them questions and try to get as much information as I could. And that was the plan that I came up with. And it helped me out significantly as I started to grow because I was able to take those distributions to supplement my income while taking a lower salary. And then as I started bringing people on, employees, I was able to pay them better wages because I often paid people more than me. Especially if they were bringing something to the company, on paper I did anyway, but they were bringing something into the company that I wasn't willing to do anymore, then I was willing to pay them for that service.
Okay. So see, y'all, it's the same thing across the board. It's them it's them taxes and that big bill when you like, I had my best year ever. Okay, here we go. What is one lesson, you can make it money related or not, that you learned the hard way that you wish like somebody would have told you earlier in the journey, like, hey, Dave, when this happens, don't do blah. Like what lesson would you say that was for you?
Sure. Choose your relationships carefully, slowly.
Ooh, okay.
Truly understand the person, not just what they can deliver, but really understand them, who they are, how they act around their family. I heard once somebody said, and this is not that long ago that I heard it, but it really hit home for me, that they never did business with somebody who ever cheated on their spouse, because they said that if the person they could lie next to somebody in bed and lie to them, then I'm sure they could lie to me. And
I mean, that makes sense, though, to be fair.
yeah. So, how
Okay.
people treat their family, how people treat their time with others. Uh, I started falling into this trap where I started becoming more distant because I was creating relationships and not necessarily partnerships, but relationships that were, a lot of referrals and things like that, that started to become very toxic. And you have to be very careful there because you want to give people the benefit of the doubt, especially if you are yourself a kind of person who doesn't feel like you would just go into a relationship just to betray somebody or to use somebody. You have to understand that there's a lot of different personality types out there, and there are people who will do that. So you have to choose those relationships very carefully, and you have to be very guarded and take a lot of time. And don't let those shiny new projects divert you from your core vision and the wheelhouse that you're very comfortable living in, because it's very easy to scale when you start taking the step out of what, like I was bringing up before, that box that fits with what you actually do, what you're really good at. But you want to make iterative changes. You don't want to make big leaps, even if you're giving up a huge, even a six-figure project is worth saying no to if it's going to diverge you too far, because you're going to eat into that six figures very quickly and then up spending more, and which is going to drain your time, your energy, and ultimately affect, like I said, downstream those other relationships that you have because you went after the money. So I'd say that's probably one of the biggest lessons I learned, especially when it comes to relationships and business, and then obviously how it downstream affects relationships in your life.
I love that. And I think so many times we try to keep it like in these two separate silos. Like what goes on in business doesn't affect personal, what goes on personal doesn't affect business. But I love how you keep coming back to that central theme of like, make sure you're in complete alignment within yourself, because make no mistake, they merge, they cross paths, they intrude on each other's time. So you can get that huge deal or whatever it is that you think will be great, but make sure it's not affecting what you're at least saying does really matter to you. All right, let's go to this route. Now, you said earlier, married, got kids. Now, what are some of the things that you do to kind of keep that balance for yourself, right? Like, do you and wifey have like a date night every week? Is there like something that you and the kids do like every Sunday morning or every Friday night? Like, tell us about some of those things, because a lot of people are, we intoxicated about the ability to make more money. I got to keep working. I got to do 12 hours. Tell them like how you kind of kept that in balance.
Sure. So I'll start so it's evolved over time, obviously. And we moved when I started my business. We lived in Sarasota, Florida. Now we live in Johnson City, Tennessee. So things did shift a little bit just based on a new location. But I would say that to summarize it, so every energy that you give out, I call a currency, just like money is a currency, right? And money is the easiest one to obtain, and it's the easiest one to lose. It's like, but everything else in your life, relationships and all these other things, they're all currencies. So what you invest in is how you're going to get paid back. So if depending on, I could say, oh, it's a date night with your wife, but it's not always going out to eat and spending money. Sometimes it's just sharing an evening, sitting together and talking about the things that are going on in your lives. I mean, that's an exchange of currency between the two. And then, obviously, ensuring that you make time for, the affections with the wife. And I mean, like, going by, giving her a hug, making sure that she knows on a regular basis. It's less about the big things that you do and more about the little. About just reminding people that you're thinking about them and that you care about them. So even a text in the middle of the day is better than, ignoring her for 2 weeks and then taking her out to some big expensive dinner, because she doesn't care about the expensive dinner. Most likely she would rather just, sit in a hoodie, sipping on a glass of wine and watching a show with you. Now, while obviously I don't always recommend watching TV as that time, it is a time you can spend, but it's less interactive. But if you're snuggling, if you're together, that's a really great way to at least be connected with one another. And then when it comes to your children, it's kind of the same thing. So I have a unique situation. I have now currently two 19-year-old twin daughters and a 4-year-old daughter. So a big gap. And when the girls were a little bit young, the youngest was born when the other two were 15. And at that time, they were starting to work and things like that. So they'd be coming home at 10 o'clock at night from work, and we'd have to be up at 3 a.m. with the baby. So that was really tough because you want to make sure they get home. And so you may not have that situation, but even so, making sure that you're taking the time to hang out with them individually. Now, I also, like I said, have twins. They're identical mirror twins. So they are as alike in DNA as any two humans ever could be. One's left-handed, one's right-handed. They're super close, but they're totally different people. And when we hang out, I hang out with them individually. So we try to do once a month. I take them out to coffee or lunch or something like that, where we just sit down and we talk. And I just listen a lot because, they're all going through stuff. And once you have teenagers and they grow up, you'll realize that it's 13 going on 30, and then it's 18 going on 12. They just seem to lose all sense of reality when they turn 18 because the whole world's right in front of them. So you have to have grace with that, and you have to listen to a lot of things they say, because even though some of the stuff they say is absolutely ridiculous to you, you have to understand your relative perspective is 25, 30 years ahead of theirs. Right. So having that patience, having that presence, and usually I would say the most important thing in relationships with those people is holding space, letting them talk, letting them, your accomplishments really mean nothing because they know that you're there to take care of them. They know that you're trying your best. They know all those things. I spent a lot of years blaming everybody, or not so much blaming everyone, like accusing everyone of not understanding what I was going through, and how hard it was, and how I was doing it all for them. And nothing drove a rift into our relationships faster than doing that. So being very,
Wait,
very
wait, 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 wait. You got to stay right there
Mm.
because I feel like that's the norm.
Yeah.
Doing it for you. I'm paying the bills, trying to make sure you got money, so whatever you ask for, you'll have. But go back to that part. That was crucial. Go back.
Yeah, it is crucial, and that's fair. So, um, rather than saying that, I found that it's not so much like hiding your own emotions or anything like that. It's number one, it's the way you say it. So when my girls, when they were younger, they used to always get upset because they said I was yelling at them all the time. And I never really felt like I was yelling. I thought I was just talking. But I'm a very eccentric and energetic individual, so I tend to talk loudly. And if you ever get around me and my parents, I mean, that gets really weird. I mean, sometimes I'm like telling my dad, I'm like, all right, keep it down. And I'm like, wait, that's me. He's like a mirror for me. Uh, so I started to realize that not just what you say, it's also how you say. It's also when you telling instead of showing. When you're telling people how it is, when you're telling people what they feel, when you're telling people what you feel, it's very difficult for them to identify with that. It's very difficult for them to feel empathy for you in any way. And especially if you're really seeking it, what I call it's chasing. And we all hear that word all the time. You're chasing money, you're chasing this, you're chasing that. You can chase everything. You can chase affection, you can chase acceptance. And in this case, you're chasing empathy in a sense for your situation, and they're looking for empathy for theirs. So when you're basically trying to steal it from them and not give anything back to them when you give them those. I mean, at least that's the way that I felt about it during my own retrospection and how it affected me. So I started to realize that when I was feeling that way, it was because what I was seeing is I wasn't actually giving enough to them. I wasn't giving them what they wanted or what they needed. And I'll be honest with you, I could be living in a car with my wife and daughter, and they would be just as happy as living in a big house because they have me. And that's what my wife married. She didn't marry my money, she married me. So by taking that away from them, you're really doing them more of a disservice. And that was a hard lesson that I learned over time being in business. And I've corrected it. And honestly, it's made my business better. It's made me better. It's given me a lot more balance in my life. And I found that on days where I just didn't feel like, and I even had one of these days yesterday, I was just tired. I was feeling a little burned out. I just stopped working at 10 o'clock and I just did nothing else. And this morning I woke up and I knocked out everything I had on my to-do list yesterday in 2 hours flat. So I could have dragged through the day and I could have hurt myself, and then I could have been upset and, taking it out on everyone around me. But instead I decided, let's take a step back. Let's find that balance, spend a little time with the wife, and not worry about those other things, because everything else is going to fall into place, especially when you have that alignment with yourself. So that's probably the best way I could speak to that.
I love that because I think, to your point, I know I've been guilty of like, man, I'm just not having a productive day, and you just keep trying to chug through it, and you're not really being that productive. You got some stuff done, but versus it probably, to your point, I never thought about it like that. Let's just go on and shut it down. Let's switch it up. Let's pattern disrupt. Let me go out here and do something crazy with the kids and have some fun. And then probably tomorrow I'm coming back and I'm super charged up. I would have never. I'm stealing.
It's fair, yeah, because I call it like your quo. That's like your normal. Like if you're like kind of somebody who's really moving fast all the time, and like me, I stand up when I eat. Like I can't help it. It's just the way I eat quick. I run through things very quickly, especially things that that seem like they're just routine things that I'm doing. But I also I'm very meticulous. I've been tracking my macros. I'm almost on a 2-year streak of every day tracking my macros, and I go a little, I weigh my food. I do things like that. So I take the time for that, but I usually shovel it down pretty quickly. But sometimes when you're in that quo state, a lot of times when you start to find yourself kind of losing control, I do this thing what I call contra, which is basically meaning the opposition. So opposition to that would be slow down. So I think about that. I'm like, okay, I'm getting a little off the rails. I need to do the opposite of what I feel like I need to do right. And Cameron, I know you do CrossFit. I did CrossFit for 2 years, and there's nothing like in CrossFit. You feel like I got to be in the gym, 4 days a week, 5 days a week. I want to be there every day because just that kind of like feeling you get in CrossFit. And now I do hot yoga, and I still feel the same way. So but the thing is that we all have learned as through our workout journey that rest days are just as important as lifting days, and sometimes more important, because there's times where I like will kind of hurt myself and I'll take 2 weeks off and I come back and I feel stronger than I did when I left. And it's really the same concept when it comes to your work. That mental muscles, all those things, it's the same energy you're putting out. It's just got a different frequency. So, but it demands the same respect. So if you're willing to do it for your body, you have to be able to do it for your mind. You have to do it for your ego. You have to do it for your spirit, and you have to do it for yourself.
Dropping the gems. All right. Let me see. Let's wrap this up with some rapid fire questions.
All right. Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Rapid fire, because I feel like we could keep going. Y'all, see, and I cheated, by the way, because me and him talked about some of this prior. That's how I knew how I was going to get for the guests, because we talked about it at Austin. But, all right, rapid fire time. 12 months from now, what is one big win you'd love to be celebrating?
Sure.
So by the end of next summer.
100%. Yeah. I've started a community called Integrated Ownership, which is part of my new, it's like kind of like my passion project, which is my new leadership training stuff, where I talk a lot about what I just kind of went over about alignment with yourself, with building better relationships and a better business. So I'd like to see that community grow. Within a year's time, I'd like to see 750 members in the community itself. And in the next few months, I'm going to be releasing a course called the Ownership Operating System. And I would like to see probably it's going to be cohort based. So I'd like to see myself have gone through at least 7 or 8 cohorts at that point in time in a year's time. So that's kind of my goal. That's what I'd really love to see. And in the same lockstep, keeping everything moving forward with my current business and showing representation. But I have some staff that's kind of been taking over a lot more of the day to day, so I could focus a little bit more on my passion.
Okay, next question. If I gave you a magic wand and you could fix one thing in your company today, what are you fixing?
I would say our marketing.
Okay.
Our ability to outreach a little bit more cleanly and more effectively and more knowledgeably. It's kind of our weakest link. We rely a lot on referrals. So love to have a lot more marketing help to get the message out.
All right. Next question. If you could get in a time machine and you got 30 seconds to go back to 18 or 22-year-old Dave, but you know everything like to this second, what are you going back and telling 18 or 22-year-old Dave?
Well, after I smack the snot out of him, I'm going to say to him, never betray who you are for where you think you want to go.
Okay. Never betray who you are to get where you want.
Well, where you think you want to go, because most of us think we want to go somewhere and we have no idea what's at the end of that rainbow. And we find out that it was not a rainbow and it was not gold either. So never make that shift and betray who you feel like you are deep down inside, or to betray the boundaries that you set for the people you would work with, or the things that you are willing to do to get to where you think you want to go, because that destination, isn't, it's like the end of a movie, The Princess Bride, they ride off into the sunset, but what happened after that? You don't really know. So don't think that there's ever that like happy ending that you're heading toward, just stay true to yourself and you will find the best way, because the real treasure is the journey. So if you're not enjoying that, then you're doing it all wrong anyway.
Yeah. You see, he just sprinkling the game on y'all. He trying to help y'all out for the free. All right, now we gotta come to a close. We know you got more people to help. Now he helped y'all for the free, but if you want to work with him because you're like, man, I love what he's talking about. I want to join this community. I just want to work with him because I need tech and back end and systems help. Tell the people again, name, how they can get in contact with you, company name, socials, whatever you want. This is your time. Let them know.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. It's just Dave.Zarin or Dave Zarin. You can see my name is spelled on here. It's unique. So Zarinology. So basically, my name with ology at the end is the name of my company. Zarinology.com is where you'll find information about our services with system integrations, and you'll be able to see a lot of case studies, people we've worked with. We've worked with a lot of very large companies. We even got the opportunity to work with Mr. Beast on the Team Seas project. We got to build the infrastructure for that particular one. He's doing one currently right now called Team Water, which is going very well, and they're using a dedicated donation platform this time. So really exciting stuff that he's doing. And we had the honor to work with him and his organization. And you can read about that on the site. Then integratedownership.com will give you, that one is up now. It's still very early, but there's access to how to become a part of the community in there. And then also some further information about some of the new stuff that we're coming out with. So those are probably the best ways to do it. I'm also on Facebook. You can find me, Dave Zarin. Those are the two platforms I'm the most active on for posting any information.
All right, y'all. You heard it. He broke down how to keep that balance and staying in alignment with yourself, and how sometimes saying no is better than just taking the money. He talked about his growth journey. He's talked about the importance of having that other person on the financial side to bounce ideas off of, so that you're not just going at it alone and paying these big old pieces of cash that you don't have to. So take advantage of what he said. And on top of that, if you need the help, he just told you where to find them. LinkedIn, Facebook, gave you the website. Say the websites for them again, just in case they missed it.
Zarinology.com and integratedownership.com.
Go there, get in touch with them, tell them that, hey, I heard you on a podcast and I think we need your help. So, guys, these are the types of people that we're bringing for season 4. People who are extremely passionate about what they're doing. They're doing it at a high level, and they're willing to come and share some of their stories and their mistakes and what I would have wished I've done and what we're doing now to fix that, or now that I've learned these new things. These are the quality of people we're bringing to you for season 4. So if you love this episode, make sure you share it with a buddy. Send the clip to somebody, whatever you feel you need to do. All right, with that being said, Dave, thank you again for coming. And until the next episode, y'all take care of yourselves. Peace.